Got some great news on Jared Jones and a simple question. Is the opening day roster in 2025 better than it was in 2024? We'll explore it together. That's next on Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Pirates your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Gary Morgan. I run a website for the Pittsburgh Pirates called Steel City Pirates. You can go check that out pretty much anywhere. I think you'll find me on Facebook. You'll find me on Twitter. I'm trying to learn Instagram. I'll get better at it, I promise. But if you have any comments, please pop them down below here on YouTube. I've been trying my best to answer as many of them as I can. And I really appreciate your feedback on stuff. It really helps me craft the show into what you want it to be. After all, that's why I'm doing this, for you, not me. And I'd also say Jared Jones being out for 6 weeks is much better than TJ, right? At least it sounds a lot better. But here's the thing. It's a pitcher. So this isn't like Brian Reynolds has to rest for 6 weeks and then he goes out and takes 25 swings and all of a sudden he's back up in the league and doing what Brian Reynolds does. This is a pitcher. He's shutting down completely. The exact quote is he's got a second opinion, no surgery, no torn ligaments, 6 weeks without throwing. I'm hearing a stress fracture. I haven't seen that confirmed by any real media yet. So we'll see what actually happens and comes from that. But that again means a lot more. Do some math. You're still looking at probably 2, maybe 2.5 months by the time he ramps up. And that's the equivalent of a spring training in AAA. So 6 weeks from whenever, maybe it's even retroactive for all I know. I haven't 100% seen that report yet. But if it's retroactive, it's only by about a week. 6 weeks from now, he picks up a baseball, he starts throwing. It's like January to him, right? So you're looking at probably a month or so before he's facing real heated competition anyway. Then he starts facing that competition and, you see how it goes. You're not necessarily looking for him to reprove that he belongs in the majors, but you certainly want him to tick some boxes. Do everything pain-free. Show me that you're okay here and there. Show me you can make all the moves. Jared's had some other muscular issues like a lat, and that's something that can kind of get aggravated when you're doing things different or you're treating a certain muscle group in a certain way, trying to baby it. So who knows exactly where this goes, but it's the best news you could possibly get when you have a guy going to get his elbow scanned a couple times, right? We've already seen the little bit of fallout here where Carmen Mlodzinski is now in the rotation. It's not that I have no hope for Carmen Mlodzinski. It's just when you're talking about a direct comparison to Jared Jones, which we're going to do a ton of comparisons later on in the show, so I guess brace yourself for a little bit of this. There's clearly a little drop off there, right? And even if we were to go to like Thomas Harrington or Bubba Chandler, well, you're going to a rookie. And Jared Jones was a rookie last year too, and he was great, but he struggled a little bit, right? I think you have more faith in Jared Jones in year 2 than you did entering a rookie season, even though he was unflappable. It's still great news to know that you can be getting him back. You pile on top of that, you got somebody like Luis or Johan Oviedo coming back as well at some point late in the season, and Dowry Moretta gets added back into this mix at some point later in the season. On top of all those kids we've already mentioned that are in the minor leagues to start the season, like Braxton Ashcraft and Mike Burrows, and somebody none of us talk about anymore, but I used to really be excited about. Sean Sullivan never gets spoken of anymore. You could wind up working through those guys relatively quickly, or you could wind up seeing a lot of guys we really thought were going to factor in this year, just not. Maybe they even wind up being bullpen options, but it's good. We're anxiously awaiting injured guys coming back, but I don't think that they're destitute until they come back. So that's a good setup. I'm intentionally kind of like putting on some sunshine here because the rest of the show may not be the most sunshiny thing. When we start comparing this roster side by side and we talk about the findings that I actually got from doing it, I think you'll see that losing a guy like Jared Jones is not something this team can tolerate. No matter whose fault it is, no matter how things come to be, when they happen, you have to just accept them. That's baseball. That's why you build redundancies into your roster, at least if you do it well. That's why you get more of a commodity than you think you need. That's why that glut of pitching we were supposed to be trading kind of doesn't get traded as often as you would think around the league, right? Nobody wants to trade young pitching unless they absolutely have to. And there's a reason for it. This stuff happens. And we may have been spared the worst case scenario with Jared Jones, but it's early days here. Let's see how he recovers. A seamless recovery to me probably has him back in the picture sometime in June, which is not that bad, really. Like you get a nice injection around June of some talent that you can count on. You're feeling pretty good there. That should be right. That should be a good month or so after Spencer Horwitz has made his way back up here too. And, maybe you start to see the team kind of come together a little bit more at that point. Either way, you need to celebrate the small wins, and losing Jared Jones for a little bit is a heck of a lot better than losing him for a year and a half. I mean, we've seen that act far too many times, and boy, it felt so unfair. I felt like the guy in Twilight Zone that finally got time to sit and read after the apocalypse, and then he broke his glasses. We finally got a rotation here, and now we're going to start going through attrition, right? So feels nice to get spared from that this one time. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we will talk about this roster and how it compares to 2024. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I love them when I'm on the golf course. They really help me get through 18. I wish they'd help my score a little more, but I certainly feel like I have a little more energy by the time I get done, which is always a good thing. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. We're going to start talking right away about this roster because, man, we have a lot to get through. Starting pitchers are where we're going to start the journey. But before I do, let's lay a few ground rules just so we understand what I'm doing here. What I want to do today is simply compare the 2024 opening day roster to the one it looks like they're about to trot out there for 2025. It sounds really simple. But as soon as I start doing it, I feel myself drifting off into wanting to defend them for things they couldn't control, like injuries or somebody just didn't want to sign here, or I start wanting to kind of excuse some things like that, or I start wanting to blame people for things. And in order to have a clear-eyed view of this thing and really compare it side by side, we have to shut all that off. Okay. So at least as we walk through this roster, nobody's dumb. Nobody did anything dumb. This is just what happened. Okay. This is what was versus what is. So in 2024, the starting pitchers were Mitch Keller, Martin Perez, Jared Jones, Marco Gonzalez, and Bailey Falter. And going into 2025, we're starting with Paul Skeens, Mitch Keller, Bailey Falter, Andrew Heaney, and Carmen Majinski, the surprise entry, right? Nobody expected that. Let's start with the obvious overlaps, right? You got Keller and Falter. You probably feel a bit better about Falter than you did last year. At least I know I do. And you're probably flatlined on Keller. He is what he is. He's shown you his baseline, at least. You can hope for better, but that doesn't mean you expect it. Jones is out. Skeens is in. Unfortunate, obviously, but there's no denying that's an upgrade on paper. Heaney versus Perez, they're probably relatively the same thing. Heaney might be a touch more consistent than him. And Carmen versus Marco, we never thought one of them would last, and the other we never expected to see. So all in all, slight uptick from the opening day roster last year. And that's mostly attributed to Paul Skeens, right? He's really the only difference maker on paper there. Bailey Falter, I guess, if you want to say you feel like he's jumped in esteem to you, I understand that too. Now we have to do relief pitchers, which is always dirty, right? I'm going to start with everyone's favorite, David Bednar, Ryan Borucki, Aroldis Chapman, Jose Hernandez, Josh Fleming, Luis Ortiz, Ryan Ryder, and Hunter Stratton. That's what we started with last year. Admittedly, hey, I'm guessing a little bit here because they haven't finalized it yet, but this is what I think they're going to do for 2025. And even if I'm wrong, we're talking about swapping one of the lower end relievers to make this actual. David Bednar, Colin Holderman, Dennis Santana, Caleb Ferguson, Justin Lawrence, Tim Meza, Ryan Borucki, and Hunter Stratton. I mean, again, I don't know if that's 100% right, but that's what I think. At least that's what it looks like to me. I just cannot see carrying 4 lefties into the regular season. Maybe they'll surprise me. There's 3 holdovers there, Stratton, Bednar, and Borucki. Hard to see Bednar as a change from last year. Maybe the way we felt about him at the time, I mean, maybe we felt a little more positive about him at the end of last year than we do now. But probably a wash, I'd say. Borucki, he was injured all last year, but we were certainly happy about him last year coming back, and I think most people remain pretty happy that he's coming back. Seem to have just forgiven him for the injury year. And Stratton, hey, he was pretty good when he was healthy, and he's still pretty good. So I mean, I have no issue there. Big difference really is no Chapman. You get to add Holderman and Santana. They weren't there. Does that wash it out? I don't know. Someone successfully wore the closer role would be really nice in this bullpen, right? I mean, I'm not sure you can say Justin Lawrence successfully held the closer role in Colorado. After all, he did get waived. Still, I don't know. It's not a lot different. I'd have to say the bullpen is largely a wash. Maybe a tick down because of losing Chapman. I just feel like they needed somebody else like that, especially with Bednar being shaky. It's either slightly down or it's a draw. So between the bullpen being a little down and the starting rotation being a little up, I think I'm going to call pitching a draw. 2024 versus 2025. Now that's not great, right? I mean, you add somebody like Paul Skeens in, you don't expect to be saying that your pitching is the same as it was, or at least you have the same perception that you did. And I look at that and I just can't help but think that's where it is. I don't think I'm being overly critical. I think I think I'm just looking at it for what it is. I feel like it's almost a draw, almost dead even to last year. I don't know that that's something that I want to be saying about my team that's supposed to be trying to win, right? You want that to improve more. I did expect the bullpen to be affected a little bit more by some of the starters that didn't make the rotation or even make it north out of camp. And we're not even seeing some guys that we know are going to contribute this year. Like Kyle Nicholas will be back up here for sure. They've got some other options too, like Mike Burrows and Braxton Ashcraft could wind up in the bullpen. They've really got some beef down there. I should be more excited about it. I don't know. I can't get past not having somebody that I feel good about that can take over closer. Maybe I'm overreacting to David Bednar a little bit. That might be the best way to explain my feelings on the bullpen. It's really, really hard for me to look at anything after I see David Bednar top that list because I'm so afraid of what he's going to put on paper this year. In general, I really think Colin Holderman is a good pitcher. I really think he got overused last year early on, and he suffered for it. Dennis Santana was a really nice find, but that's what he was, a really nice find. It's not as though he grew a new arm after the Pirates picked him up off waivers. He just, something clicked for him. So good for him. But with guys like that, you kind of always wonder when the click's going to stop. That's the scary part. Caleb Ferguson is, he's long been a pretty respected reliever. I think we know what to expect out of him. Ryan Borucki has looked really good and looks almost exactly like he did in 2023, which is great news for this team. Everybody else is kind of an also ran. I'm okay, like just letting that go. The other big departure really is Luis Ortiz, and I'm not sure whether I can count that here because he kind of left the bullpen anyway, right? He moved to the rotation. So we'll see. I feel like it's a wash. I think the pitching is a wash. And all in all, that's a pretty underwhelming place to be. Did you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, or I guess eggs, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy to use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry leading service. so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, so it's time for the fun part now, right? We all felt the pitching was ahead of the game, and at least on paper, I'm not feeling it. We all thought the hitting was behind. Now I'm going to look at that. Let's see if I agree with myself still, right? In 2024, Brian Reynolds, Jack Sawinski, Michael A. Taylor. Sorry if this gives you guys PTSD too. I'm not trying to do that. Edward Olivares, remember him? And Connor Joe. Connor Joe, I guess you could kind of count as a first baseman. I'm going to count him as an outfielder. I felt like they used him there a little bit more. In 2025, we've got Brian Reynolds, Jack Sawinski, Tommy Pham. I think G1 Bay probably makes it, and O'Neal Cruz. So O'Neal Cruz, obviously the big addition there, right? Let's go through it. We have two returning guys, Reynolds and Sawinski. Reynolds is old faithful at this point. Jack, well, who knows? I mean, I said the same thing last year about Jack. Who knows what he's going to be? So I don't feel any different about that selection. Pham, I think, will hit more than Taylor. I also think he'll play much worse defense. So there you have that. Connor Joe, it could be argued, was more of a first baseman, like I said, but I'm going to leave him there and compare him to Bay. Completely different players. I bet they contribute almost the same value, though, just different value. And, of course, there's Cruz. His defense is a question, but, you know, we've seen peaks of that already, and it looks okay. His bat versus Olivares, please. So I'd say the outfield takes a little bit of a step forward, and it's mostly on the back of the transfer of O'Neal Cruz from shortstop to center field. So, okay, it's false maybe then, but still, the outfield takes a jump forward to me based on the 2024 opening day roster. Let's do the infielders now. How much better could he get, right? In 2024, Rowdy Tellez. You all remember him. Jared Triolo, O'Neal Cruz, Brian Hayes, and Alika Williams. That's right. Alika Williams was on the opening day roster in 2024. I almost forgot that. Maybe I forgot that on purpose. 2025, Andy Rodriguez, Nick Gonzalez, Isaiah Kiner Falefa, Brian Hayes, Adam Frazier, and Jared Triolo. Okay. Rowdy versus Endy. Well, we sure hope that's an upgrade, right? It has to be the hope, but that's all it is. So for right now, I'm going to lean a little bit into the improvement category on first base. But he's also our backup catcher, the way they've constructed this roster. So I don't necessarily know how he can start at first base and be the backup catcher. It seems like they might be stretching him a little thin there. We'll see what they do. I'd much rather see Endy play a lot of first base and call up another catcher if that's what they think they need to do than stretch him so much and have him play, 6-7 games a week. I think that's a little much to ask for the kid, at least from the jump there. Triolo could start at first base too, I'm sure. I think we all know his shortcomings, but he was here last year, so again, no change there. It's hard to not see Gonzalez as an upgrade over Jared Triolo. Cruz for IKF, I mean, that's a downgrade. I don't know how else to put that, right? Hayes is Hayes. Frazier versus Williams. I am actually upset with the team that I have to think about that one. That's a wash. Overall, I'd say downturn. A little up here, a little there. I think the Cruz swap is kind of the point of the entire thing. Cruz makes the outfield situation a little better and makes the infield situation a little worse. Finally, we have catcher and DH. Andrew McCutchen, Jason DeLay, and Henry Davis. And in 2025, we only have 2 players. We got Andrew McCutchen, we got Joey Bart, and we got the ghost of Endy. I put in there because the ghost of Endy, I don't know what kind of spirit he's going to have left to be that backup catcher. So we'll see how it goes. But I also can't fully put him there because I put him in the infield. So we'll see how that plays out. But for now, I still think this is an upgrade. Bart makes this an upgrade. Andrew McCutchen could hit the wall any year that he decides to play, but Joey Bart gives this an overall upswing, and that's a good thing. So what does all this mean? Like, what are my findings here after I go through this exercise? First, moving O'Neal Cruz kind of had no impact. They plucked him from one hurting unit and moved him to another. The vaunted pitching, it's just about what it was last year right now. There's 2 personnel changes that had impact. Joey Bart coming in, Aroldis Chapman leaving. And not only did they not build around Paul Skeens, they just about stayed right where they were. Barely any upward movement at all, even with this addition. I mean, if you really want optimism, it's mostly about the guys who didn't make it. It's the guys who are stuck in MILB. It's the Nicholas, the Burrows, the Ashcraft, the York, Cook, those types that you hope make it up here and have some kind of an impact this year and get a shot at it. It's certainly not these rosters side by side. If you want to understand why the fan base at large isn't excited, this is an unfiltered look at why. It looks like the same thing, following 2 seasons of the same thing. That's not cool. I mean, I think about it. Did this team, and I mean just about everybody involved, did they sound as positive this year as they did last year? Some of you that went to Pirates Fest, did you hear the same things that you heard the year before at Pirates Fest? Did you hear them crowing about going to the playoffs the way they did the year before? I didn't. No grand proclamations from anybody. Those have been replaced by the mantra that they simply have to do everything right. All the little things. That's what they're going with. And I would suggest, just after going through this exercise, maybe management should try that next offseason. Try doing some of the things right. There's so many ways this could have had a different feel to it. They could have spent a little bit more in general. They could have spent more on one piece as opposed to 5 little ones. They could have just let a kid people haven't already given up on make the roster. But when you just look at these things side by side and take emotion out of it, you're just comparing apples to apples across the spreadsheet. Damn if it doesn't look like the same team. With Paul Skeens here, not only, again, did they not build around him, I feel like they put it in neutral. Jared Jones and Spencer Horwitz being healthy, I don't think would change my outlook on this all that much. That's kind of why I feel comfortable going forward with it. Because even when I take all their excuses away purposefully, I can add them back in at the end and realize that it didn't change all that much. This team on paper, did not move the ball forward. Let's see if we're all wrong. I really hope we are. I really hope we are. There's a lot of open ceilings here with these guys. So you can always hope that they overachieve or they overperform or they surprise you or people bounce back. That sounds like a typical Pirates season to me when I get started with it. I purposely did this episode today because I promise you tomorrow I'm going to do an opening day piece that is much, much more positive, okay? And I don't mean I'm going to blow smoke at you, but we're going to find ways to kind of spin this a little bit differently. There are things to be excited about with this team. There are opportunities here for this team. The division is not a situation where I think anyone's going to run away with it. I just think they could have helped themselves a little bit more than they did. That's all I got for you today, everybody. Thank you for making me your first listen every single day here on Locked On Pirates. I appreciate you very much. Hit that subscribe button. Let's get the subscribes up. It's time for me to start begging for that stuff and see if I can get a few more in there. Let's get the numbers where they need to be and ramp up into the season. Let's go, Bucks, and stay locked.